What is up, everyone? Welcome to Patio Slave. This is episode 10. It's May 14th, 2020, and we have another killer episode for you. But before we get into it, I just wanted to promote all of our outreach. So you can find us at Patio Slave on both Twitter and Instagram. And we're always looking to get some feedback and segment ideas. A lot of people are really stoked on the past things we've been doing. So if you have any suggestions or want to kind of throw us a question here or there, our email is patioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And all the episodes, we go through a pretty wide range of different music and genres and so forth. So Tony's been throwing up some killer Spotify playlists too. So props to him for that. And everyone's working really hard, and we really appreciate all the listens. We're getting some international and national listenership. And with that said, just wanted to give a little shout out to Bobby in Maine. Thanks, man. Appreciate your support. He was at some of the shows, so it's cool to hear him kind of reliving some past memories and so forth. And then Nate King is listening in North Carolina too. So props, man. Thanks for checking us out. And with that said, I'm gonna kind of shoot this over to Tony, who's gonna give you the set list for tonight.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we've got some stuff lined up for you tonight. First off, we wanted to follow up a little bit on the episode last week, talking to Greg Bergdorf, guitarist that was in Zebrahead for close to 20 years. And we had a blast. Yeah, he's awesome.
So good.
Right? That was
we hit it off. I think we hit it off. I think it was a great interview.
Yeah, he'll come back. Hopefully, we could get him back to give us some more stories or join us for a segment or two when we do the different segments we've got planned for you guys coming up in the future here. So as far as the set list goes tonight, saw a couple stories that were interesting. More independent things like record stores and labels having issues. I know the Troubadour in Hollywood is having issues. They're an indie club music venue that has started a crowdsource and crowdfunding campaign to try to stay viable and stay open during the COVID times here. So that was interesting. The Hollywood Bowl. I don't know if you guys saw that today, but the Hollywood Bowl canceled their season for the first time in nearly 100 years, which is kind of crazy. And then Tony Hawk, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games getting a reboot 1 and 2. I know Twan posted about that yesterday on our Instagram. That was obviously a seminal video game for us, and then the soundtrack, geez. And then we're going to relive our Nine Inch Nails stories from about 15 years ago, where we saw Nine Inch Nails a couple nights in a row in Boston at the Orpheum for the With Teeth tour, which was May of 2005, which is kind of crazy. That's been 15 years. Nice. And then our main segment tonight is the He's on Fire, 3-album run. He's heating up type segment that we've kind of put together 3 album runs for 3 different groups or artists. And we're going to give you those and kind of shoot the breeze on those for a little bit. So sound good to you guys?
Yeah. And they got to be great albums. Got to come with it. Yeah. I don't know what you guys picked, but I know. I think I'll like them. Like, I mean, I'm sure we have some overlap, but I'm looking forward to that.
I know we all. Tone, what do you have? You have 10?
Well, I had narrowed it down to 10, just spitballing the other night, and then I obviously whittled it down to 3. And I had 4 really because we both had Zebrahead, but I took them out because I didn't want to. We did that, so I don't want to do it again. So we'll talk about a couple other things too.
Yeah, good call. I think I have about, let's see, I have 6, and they're kind of almost like safeties because, like you were saying, Twan, there might be some overlap. So some safeties, we don't know who's doing what. So
yep. Yeah. As always, we didn't tell each other beforehand.
Yep.
So I think that being said, that Troubadour story, obviously, it's worrisome. Just more indie venues, the kind of the smaller ones that we grew up going to, and needing more help than some of your bigger venues that have a little more financial backing. Starting another GoFundMe or a crowdfunding campaign to stay open. It's not good, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's like, a lot of people look at those iconic venues. So they're not big, but they're iconic. So you think, all right, if those guys are under it, then your local club is screwed. Yeah. A lot of these places, if you ever watch like Bar Rescue and stuff, a lot of these places are like always a month away from going out of business. Well, COVID's here. Here's your month. Here's your 2 months. Here's your 3 months. You know, it's worrisome, and I don't know. A lot of these people, I think it's a pride thing where they might have been against the GoFundMe at first, but now it's like rubber's got to hit the road or we're done. So that's why they're turning.
Yeah, no, you're right, Tuan. And I kind of make the parallel with like a really classic restaurant or something that, you know, isn't making as much money as you might think. It's like a legacy restaurant. They have the infrastructure and the family legacy to have this like old school restaurant, but without any kind of support, you know, like these people are set for life. And a club like the Troubadour, I've seen a bunch of good shows there, and it's just a small club, but it is legendary. So you think, oh, this place is stable, and it's like almost like a landmark. But it goes to show how, you know, intense this really is. It's like without the crowd, I mean, every Troubadour show I saw, a ticket was like, I don't know, between 25 and like $45. It's like it's a club, you know. It is a legendary club, but it's still kind of just like this speakeasy type, you know, venue that you're lucky to see some gigs at. Like the Pixies did a run there in December with like 3 dates, and bands will just do cool stuff like that. And that's the kind of venue it is. I'd almost say it's like a CBGB's. Like it's more legendary for what it stands for, although the real estate is kind of like shabby. You know what I mean? So a GoFundMe is the only way to keep the, you know, the lights on, basically.
Yeah, and that kind of fits our vibe here. Obviously, we've talked about going to those dirty, dingy record stores, right? So we like to go to those dirty, dingy clubs too to see those up and coming bands that, you know, hey, I heard this song and I liked it. I want to go see them, like, and then you end up loving them, and you know, you listen to them for 30 years or whatever, 25 years. So yeah, those are the types of places that kind of build music and keep that music community humming. And for them to be struggling the way they are, that's obviously not a good thing. We obviously hope that they can make it through this, but it's going to be difficult for a lot of businesses and stuff like that to keep going when this is all said and done. So,
and if they do, so say they don't make it, but the venue, that location becomes a venue in the future. I mean, it could be under different ownership. A lot of what makes those legacy venues what it is the ownership preserving the time capsule, where it's like there's no light show, it smells, you know what I mean. It's the essence of the band. It's just the band, and it's stripped down, and you know, you get new ownership in. New ownership typically means a new wave of money, and you know, it could have a whole different feel. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know, what was the GoFundMe? What were they trying to get?
I don't know. I have to look that up, but it was. I'm sure it was just to kind of pay their employees and pay their rent, right, and keep viable as far as that goes. So, I would imagine it's not on the scale of what Amoeba was on, looking to have that gigantic space in Hollywood, but they have a space in Hollywood, so it's going to cost them some money to keep it open, I would imagine.
Yeah, the ownership change, Tuan, makes me think of something like the State Theater, where you guys are at in Portland, Maine. You know, it's kept its kind of ethos for the most part, but I remember going backstage a few times, and the wall was like tagged with like all sorts of autographs and like little stories and you know, cartoons and stuff that like people that had come through that room had doodled on the wall backstage. And it was like Tone said, it's just a dingy old venue with a lot of history, and that's something like, it's almost like a museum in a sense. And then when the new ownership came for the State Theater, they actually painted over a lot of that stuff. And I remember being like, damn, like I would have bought that door for the dressing room or something, because there was just autographs from like the early 90s and cool stuff. So yeah, it's holding on to like a time capsule, like you said, Tuan. Really good way to say it. And yeah, if new ownership comes in, like when I lived in New York City, like, and one of the old venues was like a theater, and like Nokia bought it, and it became like a Nokia theater. And you can imagine like how much they changed the venue. You know, it's all of a sudden like super clean plastic.
It's all plastic.
Yeah. Reference to Reveille. Yep. Only nerds would understand. But yeah, I mean, old venues, it's like old movie theaters, like old libraries, old antique stores. Like, I think we all took it for granted because it just seemed like normal life, and things are accelerating at such a pace now that gentrification might wipe things like old venues out. We don't want to see that, but this may be a precursor to that, unfortunately, with COVID.
So they hit their goal, Any guesses on what their goal was?
Oh shit.
25 grand.
No, their goal was 4,500. They're at 73.
Oh damn.
Wow.
Modest.
That's awesome. Good for them. I mean, hey,
43.
so they're probably $4,500 is what they were looking for a month ago, and they're at 73,588. So.
Damn.
Wow. I mean, that's like
This is a good thing. Maybe they can spread some of that around to other ones.
Probably.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's a bunch of nerds pitching in. I hope people are doing that for. I hope people are doing that for Amoeba too. To remember everyone that they are looking for 400K, 400,000, and that's a lot for what people might think for like a brick and mortar retail environment. But yeah, same thing. You know, without the people coming through the doors, like the venues, like people are ordering online. Does that mean they have the infrastructure? Does that mean they can pay everyone's, you know, salary and benefits and everything? No, they can't. So yeah, these GoFundMes are extremely viable and vital.
So they're struggling, and then the other story you mentioned, Tone, out west was Hollywood Bowl canceling their season for the first time in almost 100 years.
Yep.
And I think when we were chatting earlier, you mentioned all of the hardships and whatnot over the years where they didn't cancel it, but COVID comes and it's ain't happening. What were the few that you mentioned?
World Wars, 2 of them. Yeah, other wars obviously too, but the world wars are obviously big ones. People, tent poles. The riots. They went through the riots. They've gone through earthquakes. They've gone through all kinds of stuff, right? So, for them to say nope, we're not doing anything this summer, obviously a big deal because it's been almost 100 years since they've done that. So that's kind of crazy.
We should probably give some context of what the Hollywood Bowl is. Some people might not know. Nate, I know you've been there. You're probably the best one to give the listeners a recap.
A little snapshot.
Yeah.
Hollywood Bowl is phenomenal. Legendary venue. It's an outside amphitheater type venue, but it's not these Live Nation-y kind of, I don't know, cookie cutter amphitheaters that you might see out there. There's a lot of those, unfortunately. But Hollywood Bowl is very classic, and it's outdoors, and they get great artists. My favorite thing about this venue in particular, 2 things. The first being the fact that they have tiered pricing from the pit section, which is right in front of the stage. For anyone that might not know, that's a terminology for kind of the main front of the stage. It's always called the pit. And then it goes all the way back to the lawn, but it's priced accordingly. So like the pit's pretty expensive. That may be Live Nation-y or whatever. But
yeah, we coined that term, didn't we? That's ours.
Live Nation-y.
Ticket Mastery.
But then you can get a seat way in the back. It's still a really good seat in the house, believe it or not. And it's you can get tickets for legendary shows for like $20. It's pretty awesome. The second thing of many that I'll mention right here is amazing about Hollywood Bowl is it's an open policy on bringing food and alcohol. So you can kind of bring in your own food and a bottle of wine and like have a little picnic. It's really cool. It's the only place I've been to that kind of allows that. Usually they're gouging you on a $18 beer or something, you know.
So that is the opposite of ticket mastery.
In that sense, yeah, for sure. They go through Ticketmaster, but yeah.
It's very NASCAR.
You know what I mean?
It's very NASCAR.
Yeah, right?
NASCAR, you bring your own shit.
Yeah, it is NASCAR. But yeah, I've seen a lot of really cool shows there. And yeah, man, that's crazy to think that it's gone through so many world events that are just detrimental, and then COVID comes around and puts a stop to everything. I hope to be back at that venue again soon. It's kind of like the Red Rocks of Southern California, for its acoustics and legendary aspect. But yeah, man, that's crazy.
Had they released the schedule?
I think they had. I saw Janelle Monáe. I saw a few other names. Brandy Carlisle? Yeah. Or Belinda? One of the Carlisles. I can't remember which one. But yeah.
Probably Brandy in this era.
I think it was Brandy. She's the younger one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was her. But yeah, she was supposed to open it. And no more, obviously. They said no to everything, which that's kind of the state of California right now, too, right? Everything is we're closed until further notice, just waiting to hear some better news as far as the COVID stuff goes. Whereas other states are kind of saying, yeah, we're just going to try it and see what happens. So it's been pretty interesting, obviously, as far as that goes. But California has been very conservative as far as that goes.
It's market by market, to be honest. I hate saying market, actually. It's probably not right. But like LA, for instance, extended their orders through August. But San Diego's, we're kind of lifting it a little bit more gradually. Like, in other words, we're not in lockdown in that sense. I think the Bay Area as well is extending theirs. So we usually follow suit anyway. But yeah, it's pretty strict per se. But it's definitely kind of segmented in a local jurisdiction level. But yeah, hopefully things get better. I was actually going to see Alanis Morissette at the Hollywood Bowl for the 20-year Jagged Little Pill tour. So I
20, probably 25 even.
25. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was going to say,
exactly.
yeah, mid-90s.
Yeah. So that was.
Was Taylor Hawkins going to drum for it or what?
I know. That's why I was laughing when I was mentioning it. It's like we were talking about Taylor Hawkins. It's got to be OG in the original lineup.
Yeah.
When I was out in Hollywood this time, it might have been this week last year, in the hotel room was a pamphlet of all the Hollywood Bowl shows. So like,
oh wow.
And I didn't know much about it, but I had heard of it. But to see the caliber of names was pretty cool, and I think I got the impression it was pretty reasonable, and I think that's what you were just talking about, Nate. It's pretty reasonable, price wise.
Yeah, no, totally. Like if you want to see a show there, sometimes they are completely sold out, but a lot of times tickets day of. A lot of a few times I did buy them in advance, but there's always like the cheap seats. But that venue is so cool that it oddly enough, it doesn't really matter that much, especially because you can have your own picnic and stuff. You're saving money almost out of the gate, just bringing your own stuff in. And I don't know. LA's got such a cool vibe for the music scene. So like being in these venues is like part of the experience. I think we alluded to that in another episode, and we'll talk about that with something we're about to bring up here with Nine Inch Nails. But being in these classic venues, it's like I used to read about them, and now like when I cross them off the list, I'm like, sweet, checked out Hollywood Bowl and Hollywood Palladium and the Roxy and all this cool stuff. So,
and you got to, because like the Troubadour, they might not make it through this, or any of these places. I mean, no one's safe. No one's immune from all this.
Yeah.
Well, and Nate had mentioned the State Theater because that was the place that we all kind of grew up going to. It was 1,400 people it holds roughly.
Yeah.
That sound about right?
15.
That's the small club venue that we have, one of the smaller club venues that we have here in Maine. And I remember they closed for 4 years, from 04 to 08. And we had been going there all throughout high school in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then for them to be closed during kind of our college years, I was like, this is terrible. Like this would have been a great place to see a bunch of shows that we probably end up going to Boston for or whatever else during that time frame. So to see that might happen, nationwide, because of this, and obviously live music, we've been into that and how that may not come back the same way, and it may be a while, but at some point we're going to want to get back together and see live music together. And without these venues, these smaller venues, those smaller acts on their way up, it's tough for them to get in, and it's going to all be all these big places that they can't fill or won't be able to go play, and it's too bad. So I'm hoping that we can get through some of these places, get through that.
The return of basement shows. That's what I hope comes out of this.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl, come back to the garage.
Yes, that was cool.
Tone, that State Theater analogy is really solid because I remember, because I was living in Portland, Maine at the time, and it felt like live music had just like stopped. It like paused. So I think that's a good example of it,
Well, we had less venues then too. We had some smaller ones even, but that was the one that would have gotten some of the medium-sized acts. And for that 4-year period, which I mean, we were in our early 20s, that would have been a great time for us to get some stuff that we just didn't get. So
yeah, it's like a dry spell. That's crazy.
We did get to go when they opened, though. I remember going to Seven Dust with you in December of 08, like not long after they had reopened, and that was fun.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yep.
And I think I saw one of the last shows before they closed. It probably wasn't the last one, but one of the last few, which was Real Big Fish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shouts to Real Big Fish.
Yeah. Actually, perfect segue. Real Big Fish into Tony Hawk. I don't know if they're on any of the soundtracks, but
They would have fit.
They would have fit. Yeah, they would have fit. So
Yeah.
Tony Hawk, iconic video game, was out in came out in the late '90s. They had a number of them, but the first two are kind of the more iconic ones. Well, they're getting a reboot. They're getting a reboot on the PS. What's the latest PlayStation?
PS 4, I think. 5 is soon, but 4, and then Xbox One, and a few other places too.
And I think the PC too. Kind of revamp graphics and all that. But the reason why we're bringing it up on this episode is the soundtracks and how in that era, so we're all, 14, 15, in that era, those soundtracks were amazing. It was a kind of a library of a lot of West Coast kind of skate punk bands and whatnot. And when I saw that, I think we all immediately looked up what artists were on that on those games
back then, and even yesterday when
that's what I mean yesterday when we were like, holy shit, those are amazing soundtracks.
Yep. I just remember Goldfinger. I was always like, yes, the song's awesome.
Superman.
It was that was, and I think that's actually back on one of our playlists, the more recent updated quarantine edition of Superman. So go back and check that out. But
two-time playlist.
Yeah, but they'll be on it again, I guess. But yeah, that it just was always fun to like play. I remember just the first time I cracked that open and just wanting to get every achievement you can get in that first warehouse and just try to do it before the song ended and just going crazy.
The hidden tapes.
This is so much fun. Yeah. Get the hidden tapes and get up into the rafters, and it was just a blast, man. I can't wait I will absolutely buy that in September when it comes out. I'm kind of bummed it's September. Like, why isn't it now?
Yeah, why are they making?
Yeah, what are they doing?
They're just remastering it, Tony. The game's already made, dude. Throw it out there.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty wide range. I mean, there was some hip hop in there, like Mos Def, High and the Mighty was on the second one. Alley Life was on the second one. Was Tribe Called Quest maybe on one of them?
I think they were on there.
Maybe. Yeah. But it was just a cool like mashup of anything a 16-year-old kid would like. So we were obviously in heaven. Like, this is great. Like, let's just play video games, listen to music. Oh wait, we can do it at the same time without putting a CD on. All right, cool.
Wow.
Do you play it much, Nate? You played it a lot, right?
I didn't play it that much, to be honest. Yeah, I didn't play it that much, but I remember playing it a few times at least and watching people play it and so forth. But I wasn't the biggest gamer, to be totally honest.
We did hang out in Adam's basement and played a lot of GoldenEye, though. You were around for that, right?
Yeah. So N64, interestingly enough, like, is the only system that I really fully like adopted. I was like, I love this. I love everything about it. It's ease of use. It's epic games like Mario Kart and GoldenEye.
Mario Kart. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I even bought a few like off the cuff games like this. Extreme sport skiing game and stuff, because I was big into like the freestyle skiing thing. So I would just get like, no name games like that and so forth. But N64 is like the only one that I really latched onto, to be totally honest. But
was it 1080? 1080 skate snowboarding?
Yeah,
oh yeah, 1080 was rad.
Or
totally.
Cool Borders, that was another one.
Yep.
I think that was PlayStation.
Yeah, Nate, we spent a lot of time when we were early 20s hanging out playing Mario Kart and listening to like live Radiohead and stuff like that. So that was part of our formative years playing those Mario Kart games on 64. So it's funny you say that.
Yeah, 64 is like it's not quite super analog like the NES or Sega. It's a little bit more three-dimensional, so it's good enough, but it's obviously not what it is today. I mean, what it is today is different, it's otherworldly. But yeah, N64, that was another time capsule right there.
The funny thing about that is I know fairly recently, and Twan, you've done it, bought those like reboots of the Nintendo systems that have come preloaded with games, or the Super Nintendo, but why is there not a 64 yet? I would buy that right now, like, especially in quarantine. Like, what the hell else are we gonna do? I'm just gonna play Zelda or Tony Hawk or something right now. I would love to do that.
I think I read about it. It was something to do with licensing and about it. But I did get the PlayStation one, PS1 one, and it was terrible. Like you could tell they rushed it to market, and the game selection was weak. I mean, it had some good ones. It had like Resident Evil and Twisted Metal, but there was some classics there that's like, wait, you don't have Crash Bandicoot? What do you? But it was $20, so
Yeah.
and it
So
came with
yeah,
20
you could
games.
probably load them on there, right? You could load them on there.
Yeah, you can mod it.
Black market style.
You know what I was thinking?
I bought that.
I was gonna say, you know what I was thinking with the GoldenEye, Mario Kart, is if they did like a Zebrahead Waste of MFZV for Mario Kart and just added a ton of levels that they didn't originally have in the game.
That would be cool.
Like
Well, that's what
We
they
B-sides.
made
should
these
do
levels,
with-
but we
yeah.
just didn't do it. We didn't put them out there the first time.
Yeah, like a Rainbow Road like 8, and it's just like phenomenal.
Well, that's what I'm wondering with this fall time frame for Tony Hawk. Like, are they gonna put some Easter eggs in there? I mean, again, I'm not
They
a
have to.
game, video game creator or whatnot, so I don't know the process. But
I bet they do.
is it just like a remastering of like an old album?
Yeah,
I think
just-
so. I mean, I think that's all it is. Just looking at the, the articles and stuff. But I'm sure where it's not coming out for 3 months or 4 months, we're probably gonna see some stuff added to it and maybe a whole new game, attached. That's not like as big as the other two, but something to add on to it. So make it worth your $40.
Wow. You know what's crazy is like we're talking about this stuff. I see Tony Hawk probably at least every 4 weeks. I see him. I'd say. Yeah.
What's he
So-
doing?
Hey, Tony, we got to get him to come on. Then you gotta shoot him a message, bro. Give him a little hey. Audio slaves in your future, man. Just know we want to talk music and we want to talk skateboarding video games with you right now.
Right.
He'll be like,
Uh,
who
anyone-
are you and what the hell is Podio Slave?
Uh,
I think you're saying it wrong.
Is it
We'll
Podio
stick with the
Slave?
We'll stick with the music because we have guests for everyone listening. We have guests kind of lining up behind the scenes, so you might see some more San Diego or OC, LA, nationwide artists.
And some Mainers. We got some Mainers lined up too.
Yep, exactly. So maybe not Tony Hawk, but maybe the bands that played on those albums. That's a little teaser.
What's kind of cool is you'll get at least 2 Tonys every week. You might get a third. You never know. But there's 2 on here right now. You'll be all right.
Oh man.
So I think jumping into that, another anniversary we saw this week was those shows we saw, those 9 Inch Nails shows we saw in Boston, at the Orpheum in May of 2005, which is just crazy to me that it's been 15 years. So maybe that's one of those shows that, I mean, what's the Orpheum hold? A couple thousand? It's not
I think
big.
it's 27.
Uh,
I think I looked it up.
yeah,
27.
Good sized venue, but not a big venue at all. And, Trent coming off, haven't made music in 6 years because The Fragile came out in 99. And then he got clean in that time frame too. So this was kind of a reintroduction to the world for him. But to go on tour and play those shows in those small venues, and we got 2 nights in a row in Boston. That was just badass. And we were like, as soon as we heard about it, I remember saying, all right, I'll buy tickets to the first night, the 12th. You buy tickets to the second night, the 13th, and we'll just figure out where we're going to stay after. We'll just deal with it. We'll stay in the car. We'll find a hotel room. We'll figure it out. It was I think there was 4 of us, Nate, in our group. And then I know, Twan, you went the second night?
First night.
First night,
The
Twan.
12th,
we
I
saw
think.
you. I remember seeing.
Yeah.
How did it come about for you guys?
So for me, I went with a good friend, because I was in college at that time. Good college friend, lived on my floor. Huge 9 Inch Nails fan. In fact, if he didn't kind of tip me off to the show, I probably wouldn't have even known about it. But I remember we got tickets we decided to go the first night instead of the second, but went to the first night and it sold out very quick. And I remember, I think it was someone else that we knew also wanted to come late in the game and turning to the eBay route, and they were jacked up prices. We're talking like $200 to $250 for a $50 ticket, $40 ticket, huge markup.
I think it was. Yep.
Because I mean, it had a couple things going for it, which was small venue, big demand, but also, again, like you said, they hadn't been at it for a few years, so increased demand. But that's how it came about for me.
Yeah, I think it was like $50, somewhere around there before service charges. That's crazy, man.
$38.70 with service charges.
With service charges?
Yep.
Wow.
$30 ticket, $8.70 of service, so whatever charges that I paid. Yep.
Wow.
That's,
Twan, you just.
I mean, so $40, man. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, 30
I know. I'm trying to think with inflation what that's like.
Probably
now.
60 to 70 now.
Yeah.
With,
So it's
with
still
with fees 130.
Oh
a good
no,
price.
less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking. That was a joke, a fees joke. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
the
probably
fees, yeah.
$60. Probably $60, I would imagine.
Mhm.
It's $55. Yeah.
Yeah, 50. Yeah.
I forgot about buying. How I used to do the same thing. If I was locked out of a show, I would. eBay was the place I went, and that was. I think that was before StubHub, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah, way before. No StubHub. No.
Yeah.
None of that stuff.
Yeah.
You used to have to go to an actual brick and mortar that sold aftermarket tickets back then. There weren't a lot, or eBay. There weren't a lot of options as far as digitally getting your hands on those. So
I had a strategy. This is a tangent. I had a strategy.
Tangents.
I had a strategy with buying eBay tickets secondhand, and it was all based on time. So if the auction ended super late night and there wasn't anyone watching it, because you can watch the auction close or whatever, and it's down to like one or two people that have that kind of motivation to stay up and watch it, you get in a little mini bidding war. And I got lucky a few times where I got tickets at pretty much face value. And then they added buy it now later, and that obviously makes people just anxious, like, all right, whatever, I'll pay more. But that was the strategy.
I was gonna say I have another strategy. So there's definitely that.
Yeah.
You looked at the ones that ended at weird times, but this next one was a hack, which eBay since corrected. But back in the day, when you would search for, so say I wanted to look for Nine Inch Nails tickets. Well, if the person selling the ticket misspelled Nine Inch Nails, it wouldn't come up. The search wasn't smart enough. Nowadays, if you search like Nin Inch Nails, if you forgot the E, Nine Inch Nails will still come up. But back then, you would search for misspellings. So, because no one else would know about them. So you could get like the guy trying to sell it for a penny.
That's crazy.
That's amazing. I love that you guys both have you both had hacks as to how to find tickets for shows. That's so
not just tickets, but like people would misspell
anything,
stuff, like anything.
Yeah.
And it's like
that's like our buddy. That's like our buddy buying National Basketball Association with one S or whatever.
The URL.
He wants to sell it to the NBA someday. Yeah, .com. He wants to send it to the NBA, sell it to the NBA at some point.
Twan, actually, I have done that hack, not for tickets though, but for promo posters for albums that drop that are kind of iconic or whatever, and you buy a promo poster auction. And I remember getting a few for like $5, and they were selling on other auctions for like $150 because it was misspelled. And being like, damn, I just got it for. I mean, it's a free poster. It's a promotional poster, but obviously it's, kind of a memorabilia piece now. So.
Well, limited quantity too, right? Those came out when the album came out, and then they disappeared. So.
Yeah, Mark with Amoeba kind of referenced this. It's like something that the company planned on people hanging these up at a record store. They get thrown out basically, but for nerds, we frame that stuff.
So that leads me to a tangent that's going to our Bull Moose, and having the free bin that used to sit there. They had a little trash bucket, like Oscar the Grouch trash bucket that sat next to the register, and they'd have old promo posters in there and just random. I remember getting that Rage Against the Machine VHS tape in there, that Live and Rare or whatever VHS tape they put out. And I remember for the longest time in high school, they had that System of a Down poster hanging in the window in the Portland one, the downstairs one. And every time we went in there, like, oh man, at some point they're gonna put this in the free bin. We just need to be here the day they do it, so we can get it, or like make them an offer. Like, can we buy that for $20? Because it's awesome.
Oh my gosh, that actually brings me back to the Nine Inch Nails thing, because I got what was it? I was gonna say Fragile poster, but it might have been. Was
it in All That Could Have Been the?
Yes, it was.
Okay, because I have that too. I have that.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. You just read my mind. It happens a lot on this show.
I have it. It's actually 2 feet from me right now.
I got that.
Hold it up. I'm recording the video, Twan.
I'll hold it up.
Go ahead, Nate.
I got that poster, and that's kind of what got me into Nine Inch Nails a little bit, the teaser, because it was that live album. I bought that live album. I got that poster, checked out a few songs, bought the live album. Then Tone, you and Donnie and a few other people that were like heavy into them got me into them like way more. And then I picked up everything else, and The Fragile actually has become one of my favorite albums. Wow, nice. Juan's holding up a poster in a promo.
Yes, check our YouTube, you'll see it on the YouTube video. I'm gonna splice it up too. It won't be just one one long 140-minute or whatever hour and 40-minute thing. Yeah, that reminds me too, Nate. That was kind of how we all got into them. Was that group of friends, Nate in North Carolina and our buddy Donnie here in Maine. Just listening to Nails and going to the shows, and those are the guys that we went with to that show at the Orpheum. Nate, Donnie, and Donnie's brother Toby, Box, as we called. I love Box. Box is the man. But yeah, we just. I think I bought the day 1 tickets and Donnie bought the day 2 tickets, and we were on each other's on the phone, just like, hey, get on now. And we tried to, we're on our computers at home buying the tickets, and we got through. And we're like, I got him. Did you get him? Yeah, I got him. All right, cool. We're gonna go. Then we had to figure out what we were going to do to stay, right? It's Boston. It's spring, so it's not the easiest place to find easiest time to find a place to stay down there. I remember staying at Club Quarters.
Yep.
If you've never heard of the Club Quarters, they have tiny little rooms. It's very serviceable. It allows you, it's for business type people who are going in and out of cities and just need a room to sleep in because they're working the whole time they're there. We were obviously going down to nerd and not work, but I mean, it was work for us. It was fun work for us. We were going down to, check out one of our favorite bands at the time. And then, bop around to Newbury Comics on Newbury Street in Boston, which is also a blast. It was spring in May. It was May in Boston, springtime. People are, it's warm out. People are loving life. Everybody's coming out of the doldrums of winter. So that was just a blast of a trip. But the Club Quarters was something that I remembered. I've actually since stayed in the Club Quarters in Houston, Texas.
What?
Not Not. I mean, it was fine. It was a Club Quarters, but the one in Boston was a trip. I just remember that being like, this is what a hotel room is like this. This is tiny, and we're like sleeping on the floor, and like we had two like twin beds. It was the smallest little friggin' hotel room, but
so is we that made the name of the hotel? Club Quarters.
Yeah, Club Quarters. Yep. They're a chain, obviously. I don't know how many there are, but our first foray into that was in Boston, and it was like $140 a night, but there was 4 of us, so it wasn't that bad. But I mean, college kids too, so trying to make that work was fun.
As a visual, think like San Francisco studio, like literally like enough to like lay down. It was tiny.
Or like a cruise ship, like a room on a cruise ship. Yeah.
Or like or like Kramer's apartment, and when he has the guys from Japan come over and they sleep in the armoire.
Tone, this all makes sense now, and Twan bringing up the poster because that live album came out, I believe, in 2002, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yes, it was in between the two studio albums. Yep.
So okay, so that makes sense. So I got into them late. So, and Nine Inch Nails was on essentially a hiatus. So Trent was taking a break from Nine Inch Nails, working actually with Maynard James Keenan, to do a side project called Tapeworm that never got released, and then decided that wasn't going to work out, and then get back to writing for Nine Inch Nails. And then 06 came, so all of us were super ramped on Nine Inch Nails at that point, and seeing them the first time in theaters, the Orpheum Theater in Boston especially is such a cool venue. I remember going thinking, man, this is a bummer, it's all seated, and like the security there, I don't know if you guys remember, the security there is extremely strict. If you move like 4 inches out of your mini 19 or 18 60s balcony chairs or whatever, they get super pissed. Yeah, those shows are fucking gnarly. I did the write-up on the Instagram, and it was just like a trip.
Yeah, well, you're right. January of 2002 that came out, and it was live. It had some live aspect, which was from the Fragility 2.0 tour, which was in 2000 after Fragile came out, and then some unreleased stuff too, which there's some piano stuff, kind of like the Ghost stuff that you hear now, and then there's a couple of songs with actual like stripped down version of The Becoming, a few other things that are really cool to check out in retrospect. So go back and peep those if you haven't.
Yeah, so getting into them on a live album and then seeing them live and then in a theater, like for a nerd, that's just like overload.
Yep.
And that's the thing is like that venue, you talked about strict.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those venues where they usher you to your seat, no flash photography. Yeah. And I think that was enforced that night.
Yeah.
There. But it's one of those things like it's a give and take. Do you want to see him at the Garden or do you want to see him there? Whole different experience. For me, I would sacrifice the freedom of the Garden for the intimacy of the Orpheum, even with some restrictions.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yep.
And then
We've seen them in both, right? I mean, we went to
Yep.
Tweeter or whatever it's called now, Comcast or whatever, in Mansfield, Mass, and saw him there too, and that was fun. But it wasn't as intimate. It wasn't as like I'm in this building whose ceiling is falling on my head. Like this is way cooler. So it was good to see him. Good to see him in both. But definitely that intimate venue is always fun.
Yeah, Tone's alluding to anyone that's read the Instagram post on this show, kind of a snapshot. We're doing like a weekly snapshot of shows that we were at. I did a little flashback, and quite literally, the ceiling was kind of crumbling apart because it's such an old venue. It was built in the mid 1800s, so it's very old. And so, yeah, pieces of the ceiling were falling down on us. It was really crazy. And the balcony that we were sitting at Tony, and Twan, you were in the orchestra?
I was down below, and I was under the overhang.
Oh, okay. So you saw it kind of going up and down?
Not as much, but
okay.
But I think even where I was, you could see like almost like dust, like flakes and dust, and you sometimes you get that at like the Palladium in Worcester and things like that. But
yeah, this was like legitimate paint chips like coming down.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, it was like what I just like looked up like what is hitting me in the head, and it was just like paint from the ceiling and plaster and dust and all that. I was like this
lead paint,
and that, right, Trent, and that's why I am the way I am. No, Trent is Trent's gonna knock this building over tonight. Like this. Hopefully, we can come back tomorrow.
Yeah, it was the weirdest feeling, like being on the balcony and feeling it kind of hover up and down like a diving board in slow motion. It's like this is. But you're kind of distracted by the music and the show, so you're like, if it happens, it happens. It's that weird euphoric feeling where you're like, this is really dangerous. Like, this could all go wrong, but I really digging this show. So if it happens, I'll know because I'll be fucking on the ground. But, man, what an epic show or run of shows, man. That could have been Concert Impossible, but we all made it happen.
We did. Yep.
Super bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I bought the lithograph from that show, but I can't find it. So
no,
either I lost it or I sold it. I can't remember.
I hope you sold it.
Yeah,
Twan, I have two if you need one.
Do you really?
I might want one too. I'm gonna enlist your services to help find me one on of those misspelling on eBay.
Yeah, look for Limp Bizkit, Biscuit.
Yeah. Who's Lynn Biscuit?
You can get cheap CDs.
Yep.
Yeah, great memory. So yeah, we'll bring up more of those. Anyone that was at those show, hit us up. We'd like to hear your stories. Maybe you were in part of the balcony where it was starting to crack.
Yeah, that was something else, man. I just remember one last thing on it, sitting out front of New Break Comics, just watching, just kind of people watching and girl watching, and be like, oh wow, this is fun.
Yeah, young and single. I was 21. You were 21, right? Yeah.
Yep.
21, seeing Nine Inch Nails in
20.
Boston. You got the energy of the city. That's already really cool. See, that's another thing. You're talking about Tweeter Center. That's all the way in Mansfield. And unfortunately, it's not as pretty as you'd think being in the countryside, at least in that venue. But Orpheum Theater, right downtown Boston. So you're in it. Yeah, man. I love that stuff.
And for us, the Tweeter shows are another hour and 15-minute drive on terrible highway versus Boston. You're in Boston pretty quickly from Southern Maine. If an hour and a half tops. So, and then Boston's fun to walk around. So it's a great place to be for 2 days. In between shows, having stuff to, with good weather, places to eat, places to drink, places to, record shop, all that stuff. So it's a fun place to go for that stuff.
Yeah. Tweeter Center, your car might break down on the way.
Yes.
Flashback to episode 4 or 5.
Concert Impossible. Not Concert Impossible. Show Regret. Show Regret. Yeah. That'll come up again too, I'm sure. But we want to get into the. Speaking of that, do we want to get into the segment?
Yeah,
Heck
totally.
Yeah.
Cool. We're at. I know we all have a bunch lined up, and we're going to do this more than once. This is a segment that we'll definitely hit a few times, I'm sure, just because there's so many good choices. But the basic premise is he's on fire. If anybody's played, back to the NBA Jam days, video game days, NBA Jam. If you made 3 baskets in a row without letting the other team score, you were on fire. So anybody that's made a couple shots in a row, they're on fire. So if you made 3, great albums in a row, we're counting that as On Fire. So that's kind of the basic idea. They don't have to be completely front to back albums, but I tried to pick ones that were for the most part. But there are some that are even 4 and 5, which is a whole different stratosphere. But 3 is harder than you think. I'm looking through some of the groups that I love and come back to regularly. I'm like, oh man, they kind of had a misstep here. They only had 2, and then they had 2 more, or they had 2, and then they had 3 more after that. But yeah, it's not the easiest feat to pull off. So we thought it would be a good segment to start with. Topic to go off here tonight. And Greg, if you're listening, we will bring you back for this down the road. We definitely want to have you on. We talked about it last week with Greg from Zebrahead. We'll have him on to do this with us too, because he'll have a different aspect to bring to it, I'm sure.
I was going to say, Greg can attest to the fact that you have your whole life to write that first album. So trying to come back with 2 other albums to be on fire, it must be pretty difficult.
Yep.
And I think it was someone in the comments of our Instagram post, because we kind of put a teaser out there in the last week. I think it was there where someone made a good comment. It's like there are some bands that don't even have 3 total. So it's hard to even get 3 total, let alone in a row, because like Tony said, there's a misstep in there, whether it's changing sound, changing fan base, label influence, all that. So to come
sophomore
hit
slump.
It, sophomore slump. So to hit it 3 in a row, it's rare, and I really tried to pick 3 that are great, like truly great.
Yeah.
Who wants to lead off?
All
right, I'll go.
You go.
All right. Who did? Well, obviously I was gonna do Zebrahead, but we'll save that for another day. We'll want to talk about them again.
Yeah.
So my first one is Saliva.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. No bad vibes. They just didn't make the list.
Yeah, no, they just didn't have 3 straight great albums in a row. I mean, I love the song "Hero" with Chad Kroeger. Don't get me wrong. Click, click, boom. Still good. I mean, I'll get you amped up. No, I'm gonna start with Kanye.
Nice.
Yep. And it's funny. Just talking about the 3 in a row. I think his first 3 albums are awesome. I did not get into the 4th one as much, but a lot of people would say he had a 5 album run. So there's enough people out there that would vouch for his first 5. But I'm gonna stick with the first 3: College Dropout, Late Registration, and Graduation. I feel like that the college trilogy, for a number of reasons, for me is just unassailable. The beginning of it started my freshman year of college, so that came out, and he's rapping about not wanting to be in college and wanting to be a musician, all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of Southern Maine. All my friends moved away and went to college. I'm sticking around at home to go to school here, and I'm feeling a lot of what he's saying. And
you were feeling it because you wanted to be a professional podcaster.
I did. Yeah, it just took me 15 years to get there. 16.
Before the word podcast was even a thing.
Yes. Yep. It wasn't even a thing. You're right. We were listening to the radio. But I just remember hanging out with a couple of friends that I had made at school, and them playing it for me, and just being up, having beers, and listening to College Dropout with buddies. And that's kind of like the first, like, oh man, I like this. I could get into this. So for me, obviously I picked some key tracks. Through the Wire, which you guys know, and a lot of people know. He had gotten into a car accident before this kind of all came to fruition for him, and his jaw was broken and wired shut, and he rapped that whole song through the wired shut, and that's where you get Through the Wire. All Falls Down was a big song. I loved that song. It was just kind of perfect for me in that time frame. It holds up to this day. Yeah. And then Jesus Walks. He's obviously very religious. Wanted that on the radio and was laughed out of most label rooms. They're like, dude, you can't write a song about Jesus and have it played on the radio. But he proved them all wrong. That song was obviously huge. So those are kind of the songs I love. There are more than those songs that I loved, but those are the kind of big ones that stood out to me. Collabos. He had a lot of collabos in that first record. Jay-Z, obviously, who kind of found him because he had made beats for him for the Black Album. He had Kweli on there. on a song with Common as well, which is pretty big. So he went from Jay-Z, a very viable commercial rapper, to Quali and Common, who are a little more indie underground type rappers. Had them on there together. That's kind of a testament to what Kanye could do back then. Ludacris, he had Ludacris on a track. He had Jamie Foxx on a couple of tracks, one in this album, one on the next one. And then Twista and Mos Def too. So he brought out some big guns for that first record. And I mean, it's still, I listened to it fairly recently. It still holds up. It's a fun hang as far as Kanye goes. Right into Late Registration. Actually, we want to talk about that album first before we jump into the next one.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. Like that, I remember getting into that album a decent amount, but it wasn't until Late Registration, because obviously Late Registration was a bigger commercial success with Gold Digger and whatnot. What was what album was the Jamie Foxx Twista song? Slow Jams, was it?
Yeah, and that was the first one.
That was okay. Oh, that was huge. I mean, that you could.
Yeah, and that song was big. Yep.
That was huge.
And that was kind of Twista had that moment right around then too, where he just kind of blew up a little bit too. And part of it was being on Kanye's record. Part of it was just being super fast rapper and catchy beats, and probably Kanye beats too, right? I mean, they were collaborating. So, that was my first one. Second one is Late Registration, which again, great tracks, great collabos. Just kind of a great, talk about no sophomore slump here. Like, this album was just as good, if not better, than College Dropout. For me, obviously, big tracks, Gold Digger with Jamie Foxx. Everybody knows that one. That song still holds up. Touch the Sky, awesome song. Yeah. That song, and this is Kanye chopping up old soul records and turning them into just fire beats and rapping on them. And this is what he did best back then. If you go back and listen to, I think it's on Life of Pablo, or no, Yay. I miss the old Kanye, chop up the soul Kanye. Like, this is the kind of Kanye that I like. That stuff. So,
oh man,
he even acknowledges that he used to be that way, and people love that stuff better. But that song, "Heard Him Say" is a great song. That's with Adam Levine from Maroon 5. Yeah. Yep. So jumping from genre to genre with people on the album now, like, he's just feeling himself and doing what he can, which is, it was perfect. Had the Diamonds from Sierra Leone was a big song. He had the remix with Jay-Z, so he had a Jay-Z collaboration. He had the Game on that remix with Jay's verse is awesome. So and we'd get to watch The Throne later on, which obviously is a great record. So pretty cool stuff. Had Brandy on a song. I loved the Paul Wall Drive Slow. Yeah, that song was my favorite song on that album. It wasn't the biggest song on that album, but I just love the beat. I love the delivery. The Paul Wall stuff is cool. It's a cool feeling for that song.
Did that have and then crack music?
Yes, crack music. Yeah, with the Game is on there, I think. And then Lupe had Lupe on a song too later on. So, and Cameron, Gone, the song at the end of the album. I love that song. Yeah, there's so many great Kanye lines in that song. It just I'm ahead of my time. Sometimes years out, certain powers that be won't let me get my ideas out. It's just such a great line.
We always text each other those lines right there.
Yeah, it's just So I mean, that was talk about no sophomore slump there. That album is just friggin' fire. There's not a bad. There's no there's no place to take a breath. So that was cool. Any thoughts on that album, guys?
Oh man, that's the album that got me into Kanye, to be completely honest, because I didn't know a whole lot about that first album. My sister was a big fan. She used to tell me about it, and I'd be like, I'll check it out eventually. And then Late Registration came out, and so this was the era of CDs. So I popped it in my car CD player and spun the whole thing, and I listened to it like 8 times through because it was so sick. And that's when I kind of got into the first record. But yeah, man, what an awesome fucking album, and what a time! Like, that's definitely a time capsule for an artist like Kanye. He's kind of like coming up. He's not quite. I mean, now he's huge, right? So yeah. Talk about like gradual.
Well,
steps.
I would say by the end of Late Registration, he was pretty huge.
Yeah,
the first album did well and like 3.5 times platinum, and this one obviously did well too. So I think he kind of turned into Kanye at this point.
And Late Reg was what, 05, 06?
Yep, 8/30/2005.
Yeah.
Wow. And then College Dropout was 2/10/2004, so a year and a half in between.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. Those passed the test.
Yeah, and I feel like those two together are very similar in sound. I mean, he kind of was feeling him. I think he was feeling himself a little bit more on Late Registration because of just the way he sounded and a little more braggadocious than he was on the previous one. But
Yeah.
awesome, it worked out for him. And then I think Graduation, he kind of changed his sound a little bit. And at first, I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I loved the single Stronger, but I was a Daft Punk fan, so hearing that turned into a rap song, I was like, oh, this is the best of both worlds. And again, he's bringing other people from different genres on to help collaborate and change up, kind of bend the rules a little bit, which was really cool. This one came out 9/11/2007, so that's almost 2 years after Late Registration. Stronger's obviously a key track. Good Life with T-Pain was a cool song. Can't Tell Me Nothing is just an awesome Kanye song.
It's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, and the video with Zach Galifianakis is just great. It's just awesome. I mean, you guys have seen that, but I'm sure we'll post that later on. But yeah, and then you had Lil Wayne and Mos Def on this one, and Chris Martin was on a song from Coldplay. Again, not afraid to get out of the rap game and pull some people in from other walks of music. So that was, at first, again, I didn't love this album, but I've grown to absolutely love it. So I feel like these three in a row, kind of unassailable as far as Kanye goes. Now, a lot of people love 808s and Heartbreak, which came out next. I never got into it. I didn't hate the songs I heard, but it wasn't the same feeling for me as these ones were. And then I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is a friggin' masterpiece, which came out after, but we can talk about that another time.
Nice.
What album was the line, "Yo, pop the trunk, I pop the hood"? That was off Graduation, I think. What song was that?
Yeah.
I forget.
I don't know.
But he's got some one-liners in there.
So many. And every time you hear one, you're like, dude, that's just what sets him apart.
I do think 808s is a misstep. I think he's one album from a 5P, which is, I mean, there's maybe a handful of bands or artists that hit that. But actually, some people think 808s is his best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do.
There's some real homers for that album. I never got into it, though.
Again, it's him changing sounds and trying to, do something different, so I can't fault him for that. But then, it just, I don't know, it just didn't hit for me the way that these other three did. And then that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy hit. Because, I mean, we were living together when that one dropped in 2010, and I couldn't get away from it. I listened to it all the time.
The Graduation album, I was living in New York City at the time, so I was already all pumped on Late Registration. So when that dropped, I was living in Manhattan. No, I was living in Brooklyn. I was living in Brooklyn, Greenpoint, and living with Devin. You guys know Devin Coyne?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were both digging that album hard. We'd play it all the time and just like play it in the kitchen and just like jam to it. And it's such a, I don't know, I got into it instantly, to be honest, because I think I was already pumped on Kanye. But understandably, you're more of a legacy fan. You're like, this is kind of like a sharp right, like the sound just like randomly completely changes on that album. But I was digging it, man. And I remember he was coming to Madison Square Garden, and is it on Late Registration where he's talking about how Jay-Z didn't hook him up with tickets for the Madison Square show? You know
something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So when you did a headlining show at Madison Square is the first time, and I'm like, Devin, we have to go to the show. It's going to be him. It's Rihanna. It's Lupe Fiasco. It's NERD. It's a killer lineup. And it was his first headlining show at Madison Square, but similar to all the scalping and reselling we're talking about, that show sold out instantly and tickets were way too much. He ended up adding like 5 dates. It was like a 4 or 5 date run, Madison Square Garden run. I missed all of them because they were all oversold, and New York City is like the Bay. It's like there's so much money. They don't even care if they're paying like $800 or whatever. So I ended up waiting to see him at Bonnaroo, and this is a tangent of a tangent, because I really wanted to see him. I was stoked on what he was doing. I thought this album was killer. So I went to Bonnaroo Festival in Tennessee, and it's just like Die Hard. Like, I got to see him. This is gonna be epic at a festival. And he kept telling the promoters that he wasn't ready yet. And ironically, I was seeing my favorite band at the time, Pearl Jam, play their set. And they would get visual cues from the side stage, like, yeah, Kanye's not ready, so you guys can keep playing. So Pearl Jam played an extra long set instead of their, like, original time. And Kanye kept putting it off. He didn't end up coming out until 4 or 5 in the morning. And at that point, I had officially given up. I was, like, not trying to stay up that late. But
Yeah, and I mean, he's obviously gone, and he's open about it, gone through some mental health stuff, and
yeah,
I'm sure that was one of those nights he's just like, I can't, and that's understandable. I mean, I'm not going to shame him for any of that. That's a bummer that's something he's got to go through. It's tough.
yeah, he's doing some rock star stuff maybe, but also you were talking about like 808s. It's like I feel like that's when it really went to his head. I think he was pretty feeling it himself during graduation and even late. But I think 805 or 808s, he was like, "I'm the fucking man." And ever since, he's kind of been. That's who he is. That's his persona.
Mm-hmm.
It is what you associate with Kanye. Is like this cocky dude.
I think that was a turning point. I think the success of the first two.
Yeah.
And then the third is when the experimentation came.
Yeah.
Those 808 beats.
Mm-hmm.
And what album was Chris Martin on, you said?
He was on Graduation. Homecoming, I think is the song. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you got 808s, and then he gets on to Dark Twisted, and it's kind of a mix of, because Bonavera is it Justin from Bonavera? He was on that.
Yeah, Justin Vernon. Yep.
He was on that, so it was.
It
makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you listen to the new stuff back to back to the first album, you're like, what the hell happened? But the stepping stones to get there make sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of
808s didn't do it for me.
No, it's. I'm sure if I listen to it, I'd probably like some stuff on it. But as far as like, yep, love this, could put it on today. Yep, love this, could put it on today. Those three are the ones for me, and to make it into those three, I needed them to be like that, and it wasn't. So,
it's a good.
Who wants to go next?
It's a good pick. I didn't even think to go Kanye, but now they mention
we don't talk a lot of hip hop, and I was like, we got to talk a little hip hop.
Yeah.
I got a buddy here, and it's Anita's Rob, it's his favorite artist is Kanye, so he's gonna love this.
Nice.
Shout out to Rob.
You want me to go, Nate, or you want to tackle this one?
Yeah. Why don't you go, Twan?
You want me to go? All right. So my first one, if you know me, and I'll obviously get into it, but if you know me, this will be no surprise. If you know me personally, this will be no surprise. And also, if you've been listening to this podcast, they seem to come out of my mouth maybe every other episode. I brought them up when we were talking about Dexter Holland and how we own Nitro Records. I also brought these guys up when Greg last week asked us what we were into. And they were just the first band that came to my mouth. But anyway, Crime in Stereo from Long Island, New York. They were active from 2002 maybe to 2012, 2013. But anyway, their first three albums for me hit the nail on the head. They satisfy exactly what we're looking for with this segment. So the first one was more of like a hardcore punk band, like more of a, I guess for the casual listener out there, more of a Warped Tour band. They're from Long Island, New York, so influenced by the movie Life, Kill Your Idols, and even some brand new later on. But the first album dropped in 2004, Explosives and the Will to Use Them, and that was more, it was aggressive, but also had some melody to it. It was on Blackout Records. That was the first time I heard them. Actually, it might have been the Split, the Contract EP, but that was the first full length. Knocked it out of the park. The second album of this 3-album run is The Troubled Stateside, which came out in 2006, which was on Dexter's label. And we had that. I told you that story of like, he didn't know he's.
I'd love to work with them someday.
Yeah, I'd love to work with Crime Mysterio, and it's like, dude, you signed him, or someone in your camp signed him. But for me, that album, easily top 5 album for the last 15 years, and it's one of those like time and the place, time in your life, era in your life when you got into them. So in 2006, I was 21. So that album's perfect for someone in the early 20s. And I also saw them a shitload in that era. So like 2005 to 2007 down in Massachusetts, they played quite a bit. Because they're probably our age, maybe a couple years older than us. So they had the freedom to, do a weekend up in the Northeast. And so I had a connection with that one. And then the third one was in 2007, which was Crime in Stereo is Dead. And that's when they really pulled from the brand new Like there's some tracks on there that are very brand newish, and even more so the album after that, a lot of brand new influence. But that one came out. The irony is that album came out in 07 on Bridge 9 Records, which is more of a a hardcore punk label out of Boston, which you'd think they'd go back to their roots for. But for me, when we thought about doing this segment, that was the first run that came to mind. And of course, there's dozens of them, but that was the first one because it's just like, again, you saw it last week with Greg. He's asking what type of music I'm into. That was the first thing that even came to mind. And I actually, and this was not planned at all, I'm actually wearing a Crime in Stereo t-shirt, which
you are.
was not planned at all. I just happened to grab it. I just happened to grab it, and we happen to be doing this segment. So
I thought you'd be doing them, and I did. You got me to listen to Troubled Stateside. I actually like that album and listened to it a decent amount years ago. Now it's been a bit since I revisited it, but I did throw a song on our playlist last week from them too, from that third album. What was the name of the song, Twan? Do you remember? The one you sent me. You said it was. I can't remember the name of it. It was off the third album of this run, though.
Yep.
It's on there. It was, and I enjoyed it. I was like, oh man.
Small Skeletal.
Yes, I was like, I should, and I was a big time brand new fan. Listened to everything from start to finish with them, and multiple times. So I should probably visit that album myself because I haven't before. But I definitely listened to the Troubled Stateside and was like, yep, no, I definitely see the appeal here. These guys are pretty awesome. So that's a good pick.
Yeah, that was the album. The Troubled Stateside. They introduced some melody, not clean singing, but wasn't as aggressive. And I mean, I'm kind of a fanboy. I've flown across the country for a few bands in my time, but I actually flew out last summer to see them on a 3-leg reunion tour in Anaheim, Hollywood, and San Diego. So I flew out for all 3 shows, and then actually the third album of this run, Is Dead, they did a 10-year anniversary in 2017 in Boston. I went down for that.
Nice.
I'd say show for show, it could be the band I've seen the most overall.
Any idea how many times?
High teens.
Yeah.
Mid to high teens, realistically.
That's awesome.
Yep.
To have a favorite band and see them that many times is awesome. And it's hard. It's actually, that makes sense with that size of band because they're actually touring that much. When it comes to like bigger bands that like you want to see and they're just doing, like Greg said, one run and maybe a B market run, that's twice, and then 4 or 5 years go by, depending on the band, I guess. So that's awesome, man.
If they're a really big band and they're playing really big venues, you're not going to shell out $100 a ticket for. I mean, you might, depending on how you're doing, but yeah, it becomes pricey.
Yeah, these tickets are $20, and the LA show was at the Roxy, which is cool.
Yep.
Nice.
So it's iconic venue, but I mean, I saw them in a lot of like Elks Lodges, VFW halls, but then also I saw them open for Glassjaw at the Palladium because that's the whole Long Island connection. They took them and another Long Island band, This Is Hell, out for a run.
Sweet.
And yeah, I love those 3 albums, and we talk about where the run ends. For me, that really is where it ends because there's another album after that. I was trying to describe you to someone, and they try to experiment a little too much. Definitely still has that brand new influence, but I never revisit it. Some tracks I do, but for the most part I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
what are your like? You got a key track or a couple tracks from either. I'll probably end up putting them on the playlist, but anything you can think of off the top of your head that's like, those are the ones I really like. This couple tracks in a row or where it's
staple tracks, yeah.
So off the first album, I would say favorite track is Play It Loud Fuckers. On the second album, Troubled Stateside, I would probably start with Bicycles for Afghanistan, and then Is Dead. Small Skeletal's the most accessible. But there's a bunch of tracks.
Yep. Nice. Well, you'll see that on the playlist this week, guys. So if you've never peeped them before, I would encourage you to. I didn't know them until I became friends with Anthony and he told me about them. So definitely worth your time. and kind of a testament to what we do here, right? We're all over the map, and that's on purpose, and that's because we love everything. So glad it's fun to go from Kanye to Crime and Stereo. Who else is doing that? Nobody. Nobody.
And then to whoever Nate's gonna drop right now.
Yeah, right. Nate's gonna. Yeah, exactly.
Everything.
Yeah, that's there was our Twitter a couple weeks ago. Amazon Music put something up, and it was like, who are you most excited to see when we go back to seeing music? And I used that Han Solo gif where he says everything. Yeah, I just want to get back out there, man.
It's awesome, man. I always like it. I always kind of link it to good food. I think I might have talked about this on an episode, maybe just us three. But good food is good food. Good music is good music. Like there is some crap out there, but the good stuff stands up. Good food, good music, good albums. Like we can all agree that there's some really good stuff there for sure. So I agree with both you guys on those. That's awesome.
I'll use that analogy.
Yeah, right. Because when it's good, you can't deny the fact that it tastes good. You can't deny the fact that you're listening to a song and it like makes you tap your foot, or you're like, damn, like something about this is resonating.
And it may be something you've never eaten before or never listened to before, and you're like, yep, nope, exactly. I get it. This is it. This tastes really good, or this sounds really good.
Yep, that's exactly the depth I'm talking about. I always bring up escargot because it's such a weird thing to eat snails. But if you've ever had it and you don't mind eating weird stuff, escargot is actually really good.
And it's like the people that'll rule out an album or a band based on genre. It's like, well, maybe you haven't, with the food analogy, have you ever had that style of food? Try tasting it. You might like it.
They're like, oh yeah, no, I don't like them. Like, have you ever listened to them? No. Like, well, then you don't know.
You don't know. Yeah.
It's the same thing. You just don't know. You might not like them, but they're just dismissing it because of maybe where it comes from or who it is or what it is. So
I just don't like Kanye. I just don't like Kanye.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If you separate yourself from preconceived notions and you're just like, wow, I like this music. I'm trying not to like it. Metal is a great example. It's like, man, like for someone that's very proper or something, it's like, I don't listen to anything like super loud like that. And then they like listen to it and they're like, damn, this is actually fucking badass.
Well, and Nate, you broke me down on that because I was never that way. I was like, oh man, you wanted me to go to that Slipknot show with you 10 years ago. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I like a song or two, but do I really want to drive 3 hours to go see Slipknot? And you broke me down. I went and had a fucking blast, and now I'm like I'm a Slipknot fan. It's like, okay, this just try it.
Yeah, you can't resist the fact that your body or your something else is telling you like, hey, you like this. You don't have to pretend you don't like it because you're trying to fit this mold or whatever. Like, and now it's different because now everything's so open and everything's a little bit more fluid now. But for a while, like. I think Greg could probably attest to this. Like back in the day, you would be like, "Oh, I'm a metal guy," or "I'm a jock," or "I'm a rap guy," or whatever. Now it's just like, dude, if you like everything, that's cool. Because I like Italian food, I like Thai food, I like everything. So, yeah.
Well, and you can get it all. You can get it all anywhere, right? You can get it all at there's around the corner from your house. There's probably a Thai restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and whatever. Yeah. And there's in your pocket. There's a metal band and a hip hop act and a rock band and a pop act that you like, and they're all right there in your pocket. Listen to them whenever you want.
Yeah.
Or us. Listen to us.
Variety is the spice of life. Yeah. Music is, defines that very much so. So I chose one that kind of.
Yeah, you're up, Nate.
I know, a little tangent there. This one kind of epitomizes what we're talking about, to be completely honest, because it's kind of wacky music in a lot of ways. I'd say wacky just because it's all over. It incorporates a lot of different styles of music for sure. And I know both you guys like this one. Tone and I got into this really big, hardcore. And I got into them late, unfortunately. I wish I hadn't. I wish I had got into them from the start. But I definitely put it in my top 20, maybe even top 10 favorite bands of all time. Is Queens of the Stone Age. Fantastic band. It's changed members many times, but the sole member, songwriter, kind of like a Trent Reznor to this one for Nine Inch Nails, being the main guy for the band, Josh Homme for Queens of the Stone Age. Left Caius, which is kind of a stoner rock band from prior, and started Queens of the Stone Age and came out with a self-titled album, and it's a banger. I'm sure a lot of people out there have heard this album, but it's like so genuine. Like speaking of food, it's like an amazing pasta dish. You're like, damn, this is like right off the boat. This is amazing. This is so good. It's like so dialed, and it's just very strange, but very good, and incorporates like Homme, like Josh Homme, like grew up with like polka music. So there's like elements of like that style of music, believe it or not, mixed in with like some like stoner like kind of riffs or whatever, and like kind of some metal and kind of jazzy stuff. It's kind of all over, man. And that first album, I mean, I think that first album, actually, speaking of like tops, that might be in my top like 30 albums of all time, because it's just it's a time capsule for sure. Like late 90s. He wasn't big. He had left Caius, which like was kind of big, but they weren't like huge. They were like cult following big. And yeah, man, so many good songs off there. Mexicola, Regular John.
You Can't Quit Me, Baby.
You Can't Quit Me, Baby. Best bass, maybe one of the best bass lines of all time. As an
Such
intro.
an awesome song. You're solid gold. I'll see you in hell.
Yep. It's a good song for setting the mood for, you know what I mean, everyone. Just because that bass line's so sexy. Yeah, so I got into that album, but the thing is, I got into that album from 2 albums down. But yeah, this one, I don't know. Have you guys have anything to say about the self-titled Queens?
I do, and for a similar path for me, Nate, because we kind of got into them around the same time.
Yep.
We were going to see them in Boston. For not Songs for the Deaf, for Lullabies to Paralyze in 2005, maybe, or 2006.
Yep.
2005. We weren't 21 yet, and we were at that. We mentioned this in a previous episode. We were at that hotel bar next door to the Roxy in Boston, which is the Royale now. Playing. You had bought this CD, the self-titled CD, at a CD Spins little used record CD shop. And we were playing it. You got him to play it in the bar for us over the loudspeaker. And we listened to it like 3 times in a row while we were drinking and getting ready to go to the show. Illegally, I might add. I don't remember the name of the hotel. I'm not going to say it here, but the rep was just hooking us up with drinks. And we were that was my first experience with that album. And I was like, oh man, This is awesome. I'd never listened to this album. I knew some of the other stuff, but I hadn't listened to this one. And obviously, there's just great songs on it. He's got Nick Oliveri still in the band, and you get some his vocals here and there. You get Lanigan. Is Lanigan joined yet? I can't remember. Is Lanigan?
He wasn't in yet, not yet.
Okay, so that's the next one, which you can do whenever we're done here. But that was a blast, and that album's just badass. I totally agree. I had it too, obviously, but I didn't have it to do it tonight, but I had it.
Oh wow. Yeah, serendipitous that I bought that album at CD Spins down the street from the Roxy for the 04 show for Lullabies to Paralyze. And that album's actually out of print. So when I bought it, it was $8 and it was out of print. So it was one of those cool, dingy basement record stores that like didn't even know that it was worth like a fortune. I got it for so cheap. But yeah, we played it with the record rep from Interscope and before the show and everything. That was awesome, man. Good memory. Yeah, so I mean, they were kind of grassroots. They actually played the Asylum on that album, on the '98 album, wow. I believe.
Are you kidding me? What the fuck?
In Portland, Maine. Yeah, small.
I mean, we were
club.
14, so.
Yeah, so we're in 8th grade. So I didn't know Queens of the Stone Age then. I wish I had. So that's what I was referring to earlier. I wish I had gotten to this band when they came out. I probably would have just walked across the bridge from South Portland to Portland to catch them. Because I love this band and I love that album. It's so badass. And the show that your Tone's talking about was celebrating kind of a reissue of that self-titled album. So they played the album front to back on similar to that Nine Inch Nails thing we were talking about. They were doing a kind of a nationwide theater tour. Believe it or not, at the time they were big, but in the States, that was like the venues that they played. Now they play arenas and stuff, so they've gotten really big ever since. But that was like a special occasion to play that first album front to back as an anniversary, and they grew ever since. But they somehow remained small, like a Zebrahead thing. They were like playing like smaller venues in the States, and they'd go to Europe and like be like 3rd on the bill for the headliner at like Download Festival or like Reading Fest and stuff. Huge in Europe. But yeah, man, that album I don't listen to it enough. It's one of those albums. It's like I can't wear it out. But that went into their sophomore album, Rated R, and that album is also fucking badass. And similar to the self-titled album, the album artwork is really kind of brings you in, draws you in a little bit. it's just there's some simplicity about it that's just like, man, this like the Weezer Blue Album type thing where it's like, I gotta like figure this out because I'm not really getting a whole lot from the cover of this album. So Rated R, also fucking badass album. I think actually, to be completely honest, it's my favorite. Yeah, I'm gonna say it right now. It's my favorite Queens of the Stone Age album. Came out in 2000 and wasn't into him yet, but checked out this album and was just like floored and just like, man, this album is very like, it's got a cool theme. I think these 3 albums, like Josh had like something in mind. I remember reading about this, like he had some kind of like themes written down for this 3 album run, kind of like Kanye. I think he kind of had a theme to kind of have them kind of go hand in hand, and it's actually a really cool way to write albums because I almost feel like you're in like a space that you're getting all this stuff down on paper, so you kind of have like a documented like gold run. You're not running into any kind of like writer's block or anything. So yeah, album songs off this were like obviously Feel Good Hit of the Summer. That was one of the singles. The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret. Super like jazzy, interesting.
That was probably the biggest. That was probably the biggest song of that. I feel like.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Ironically they were touring on Ozfest for this album when it first came out, other than the club dates. So, kind of thrown in with a bunch of metal bands. But yeah, that album is really cool because it kind of showcases Josh Homme's like almost like Elvis type singing ability. He's got this weird like melodic, swingy, old kind of like 1960s style way of singing and presenting, playing on stage. Really cool to see. Just goes back to that like genuine like, man, they're kind of in a category by themselves in a lot of ways.
They're their own category. I would agree.
Yeah, I don't know like what it is.
They're stoner rock, but they do more than that. It's not just stoner rock. Like there's some jazz elements, there's some jam band elements, there's some big like swing-ish type elements with his voice, like you said. Yeah, definitely.
And these songs just go hand in hand, like right into each other too. Like after Lost Art, it goes into Leg of Lamb, and to Autopilot, which is kind of like a little bit slower. Better Living Through Chemistry.
I love that song.
It's just like all this amazing stuff. And Tony, you had mentioned that Mark Lanegan. So this is the first album that he came on to sing. He was formerly of Screaming Trees, which came up during the grunge era, which obviously I'm obsessed with. So I knew him from that. And so it kind of looped me in that way too. It's like, wow, I already like this band. Now we got Mark Lanegan. It's badass. Guy's got one of the...
He sings my favorite, probably my favorite Queens of the Stone Age song, which is kind of weird because obviously Homme sings so many great Queen songs, but I think you're gonna name it here soon. I love In the Fade.
In the Fade, yep, totally.
It's my favorite. I think it's my favorite Queen song.
Oh yeah, it's like very timeless. What were we talking about? Jurassic 5. This has that Jurassic 5 ethos where it's like it feels like this is like a classic rock album kind of. Like this is like ahead of its time, but not really. It's kind of like a throwback, but it's kind of in the future too. I don't know. So it has that weird like, this is new because it sounds old, you know. Now maybe Lanegan kind of adds that layer of like old grungy because he's got a very like almost smoker's voice type layer to it. But also just Josh Homme's like music sensibility is very like not rockabilly, but you know what I mean, very classic rock with a little bit of polka randomly, like, and his Elvis type voice, heavy bass lines, definitely very much drum and guitar focused. So there's a lot of Zeppelin kind of esque layers in there too. But into Tension Head, you know, just I don't know, man. I think this album is just permanent as one of my favorites, and down to the artwork, I love everything about it.
I love the end of I Think I Lost My Headache, which is just the brass just going crazy for about 4 minutes.
Yep.
I won't put that on the playlist this week. It's like 11 minutes long, but go check it out.
Yeah.
I love the way that he introduces that live too is I Think I Lost My Fucking Headache, which is great.
Yeah, well, swinging a bottle of tequila. He's a tequila junkie.
What's the next one?
I was gonna say, I try to dissect these albums so much as a nerd and living in Southern California. The band Nick, all very former bassist now, and Josh are actually from Palm Desert, so it's actually out in the desert near Palm Springs area. So I go out there a lot for work, and I'm like, okay, this music. You start to realize like this makes sense that these sounds come out of that area because it's, you know, very laid back out in the desert, and there's a lot of room, and you get a lot of inspiration from places like Joshua Tree. So I get it. Like you start to, it's that Dave Grohl documentary we talked about earlier, like Sonic Highways. You start to notice like these sounds are coming from what you're seeing, and therefore it translates to this record. Pretty straightforward. So, but yeah, so this led into Songs for the Deaf, which I think most people are familiar with this one. This is what actually got me into the band. This is 2002, so we're juniors in high school, and this album dropped, and I was like, damn, this is fucking killer. And it was promoted pretty heavy on radio and everything, and similar to the Rated R artwork, it kind of draws you in. Like, it's very simplistic. There's only one banger song that came out. I guess I'll check out this album. And man, this doesn't end their run for good music, but talk about on fire, because this album's like a concept album and kind of plays through and like almost like you're in your car listening to the radio type sequence. And I don't know, man. This record I think will always go down as iconic. It's like Mark Lanegan, like you said, Tone. Dave Grohl was taking a little hiatus from Foo Fighters, so he happened to have the time to lay all the tracks down for the drums. Nick Oliveri was still in the band for the bassist, and then you had Mark Lanegan for secondary vocals. It was basically a super group, you know.
An awesome opening track.
Yeah.
Awesome opening track.
Oh man.
So that was the big commercial break. So No One Knows was on that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Yeah. That was my first introduction to them. That album. Went back, checked out Rated R. I've never heard the self-titled.
Oh man, you'll love it.
Did you ever listen to Caius, Twan?
Casually.
Yeah, so it's kind of an extension of those Caius records, with a little bit more stonery and a little less aggressive, maybe.
Yeah.
But like it fits in that mold. It's kind of produced similarly. It sounds like it's from that time. I like Caius too. I don't listen to them as much as I do Queens, but Queens has obviously changed iterations so many times. They're a different band every time an album comes out, which is cool.
Yep.
But yeah, it's similar to that, but like a little bit more, I don't know, laid back, deserty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that first album for sure. They get heavier. I mean, the Songs for the Deaf, this third album, like, is pretty heavy. A lot of the songs are pretty freaking heavy. I'll blast it in my car all the time. People look at me like I'm a psycho.
You're not. It's an awesome album to blast.
Yeah.
I'll give the self-title a try.
Yeah, tell me what you think.
Yeah.
I'm interested, because I can't even remember like going back. I guess Tone, like you were saying, that might have been the first time in that record store, in that pre-show rager we were having.
Yeah.
Because I got him into them at Songs for the Deaf, bought Rated R, and I don't think I had the self-titled. Oh, because it wasn't available. It was out of print. That makes total sense now. Okay. And then we were seeing them on the album that came out after, which is Lullabies to Paralyze, and kind of made our way backwards. But
which I wouldn't categorize as a misstep, but isn't as cohesive as, because there's some amazing songs on that album too, but I'm not sure cohesively it fits like these three do.
Yeah, there's definitely that 3, and then it changes up quite a bit on the fourth record. But these first 3 are like essentially, I think, I'm a little biased, but they're all masterpieces in my mind.
Yeah.
Just like epic, really good food, you know.
Yep.
Just really, really solid albums. Solid songwriting too. Production's amazing.
They just have cool song names, man.
Yeah.
Like, you Can't Quit Me, Baby is a like a Zeppelin blues song. I Can't Quit You, Baby.
Yeah,
it's kind of a play on those words. And I Think I Lost My Headache and Better Living Through Chemistry is obviously Let's Do Drugs. There's just cool names. I know a track that always sticks out to me on Songs for the Deaf is Mosquito Song at the end of the album.
Oh yeah,
that song is just a great kind of vibe. Just a cool song.
Yeah. For that show we saw in 2004, I was huge.
I think it was 05, man.
05, you're right. It was 05. I couldn't find anything to get signed. I think we were originally going to hang out backstage with the band or something, and this is why we had the pre-party with the record rep, because we were kind of like waiting for it to happen.
Yeah. And
I couldn't find anything to get signed, so I actually went to that Newbury Comics in Maine and picked up Songs for the Deaf on vinyl, because I couldn't find anything to get signed. I didn't have enough time to get something on eBay, and turns out that album's like such a limited pressing. It's hard
to find. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like worth like $600 or something now.
I have a European copy that is not. It's worth some money, but not the same as that pressing.
Yeah, it's just like lucky, I guess, that I picked that up at the right time. But yeah. So I mean, I had to pick this because it was just every time I was almost like, trying to avoid it, like, oh, I gotta like dig deeper. But this one just similar to you, Twan, it just kept coming to my mind. I'm like, it is epic, and it's like, yeah, they're pretty big now. At the time, they weren't. If I'd gotten them earlier, I would have seen them at small club like Asylum, but still seeing them in the theaters and watching them grow and watching them revisit these albums live is like, I don't know how they stayed small for so long. But and yeah, the song names, like you were saying, Tone, kind of allude to Josh Homme's, like, he's got a very dry sense of humor, so it kind of goes with his like wit.
Yep. So
it makes total sense. If anyone listening, if you look up Josh Homme like on YouTube, just like type like Josh Homme funny. It's usually what I do.
Yeah, well, it was he was on with Rogan last fall.
Yep.
And he was making jokes, and Rogan was not biting.
I know. I remember.
I was like, they're kind of funny. A lot of them were dad jokes, but they were funny. And Rogan was like, "I'm the funny man here. Stop."
Exactly. Well, it's Homme, telling jokes, a comedian. So yeah, stay in your lane, bro.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, right. That was me.
Well, I'm gonna do my second one, and then I think we'll each do two tonight because we got plenty to do here. But I have, and this is a shout out to your sister Twan, because she had thrown out Third Eye Blind, but she had thrown out the first 3 records, and I disagree. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Out of the Vein, Ursa Major, and then Dopamine. That 3-album run, I think, is their better 3-album run. As good as Self-Titled, Blue, and Out of the Vein are as a trio. Yeah. There are spots on Blue I get a little bored, and there are spots on Self-Titled I get a little bored. I'm not going to lie. I love those albums. They're great albums. There's so many good songs on them. But for overall cohesiveness of an album, I think Out of the Vein, Ursa Major, and Dopamine, those 3 for me just they fit this for me. So Out of the Vein came out May 13th of 2003. Just had its birthday yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. 17 years old yesterday. So that's kind of crazy and timely for us. Key tracks for me on that: Blinded, Crystal Ballers, is an all-time Third Eye Blind song. My Hit and Run is an all-time Third Eye Blind song. Can't Get Away, great songs, right? And there's other ones too. Misfits is good. It's just a fun album. We all saw them last summer. I think, Twan, were you there?
I missed it. Had a wedding that day.
Yeah. So
I actually heard it. I heard it where I live. Right. You can hear it was an outdoor concert. You can hear it over the bay. So
yeah, it sits on this outdoor venue in Maine on the water called Thompson's Point, which opened a couple summers back, and it's an awesome spot for a summertime concert. And they played with Jimmy Eat World, and just a blast. It was early July, super hot. We'd had like a wicked hot stretch, and it was nasty thunderstorm happened like 3 hours before the show, and we're all like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? But it finally, everything cleared out. It cooled off, and it was just a beautiful evening for Third Eye Blind and Jimmy Eat World. So played, I think they played Crystal Baller that night too, which is just awesome.
All right, I'm gonna interject real quick.
Yeah.
And the reason I've been smirking for the last 2 minutes, they were my next one. So we were gonna do 2 tonight. They were my next one. And you basically called out the 3 that I was gonna do: Self-Titled, Blue, and Out of the Vein.
Yeah.
So do your thing, and I'll just chime in a little bit at the end. We'll combine ours.
So my thought there is that those 2 albums aren't bad. They're the albums that got me into them. I mean, there's some great tracks on those, and you can get to those in a minute, but I like this run better for my purposes. So Ursa Major came out in 2009, August. Key tracks for me on that: Bonfire, Sharp Knife, Water Landing. But I mean, front to back, I listened to that album and just can't go wrong. Saw them on tour for that album in Portland at Merrill Auditorium, which is a very acoustically sound, awesome. There. You were there too? I didn't know you were there.
Yep.
So, I went with our mutual friend who used to work for a radio station locally, and we were together with a group of people, and he had just kind of split up with his significant other, and they had bought tickets together, and we were all at it. And he asked me, he's like, do you want to go backstage and meet him? And I was like, I mean, you guys are in a terrible mood, but I do. But we ended up not doing it. So I had a chance to meet him that night. Unfortunately, we didn't. Sorry, Rob. But yeah, the show itself was so cool. Twan, you can speak to that. It wasn't. I mean, that's a great spot for a concert because the acoustics in there are badass. But pretty awesome. And then Dopamine, which came out a couple summers back, June of 2015, front to back album for me. I listened to it fairly recently again. Not a bad track on there. Dopamine's probably one of my favorites. Everything is Easy is really good. Rites of Passage is an awesome Third Eye Blind song. Back to Zero is an awesome Third Eye Blind song, and as is Exiles. Those are kind of my key tracks for that one. But again, front to back, there's really not a bad song on there, and they're fun to hear live and just fun to throw on in the car and roll the windows down and just blast. So this was the three that I had thoughts on. Anything you guys can, you're gonna have out of the vein thoughts, Twan, because you have them too.
Out of the vein, the three standout tracks for me, actually you mentioned, which was Blinded, Crystal Baller, and you mentioned Misfits as well. Those are, yeah, that album's classic because you got to remember, think about the bands in their era that came out right around that 97, like the Radio Rock. I mean, they're in a different league of these bands, but like the Smash Mouths, the Sugar Rays, like those bands, they're not supposed to put out two good albums, 3, 4, 5, you know, so it's just like that still held up. So Out of the Vein still held up for me from that stretch. But actually, ironically, I got into that album late. I probably got into that album maybe 2 or 3 years after, because it came out in 03. I didn't get into it in 03. Where Self-Titled and Blue I got into at the time frame. And so, yeah, that's my thought on Out of the Vein. Now, Ursa Major could be their best album, I think.
Yeah.
It's top. Yep. Man, it's so tough.
It's tough. They have a
so
5-album stretch here, don't they? I mean, it's crazy.
So Third Eye Blind, they're like hidden in plain view. Like they're one of those bands that, again, we go back to like screw the genre, screw what the public perception is. The Third Eye Blind is a band that gets lobbed into that 90s one-hit wonder, but if you know, you know. Like it's they're classic. They're absolutely classic. And Ursa Major is a front to back, no doubt about it. Dopamine, I need to give another listen. I liked it, but I didn't listen to it enough.
I think I like it the best of these three, Dopamine. So maybe that's just because I listened to it most recently. But there's songs from Out of the Vein I like the best out of the ones that I mentioned too, like Crystal Baller and My Hit and Run and Misfits. And they're just, like you said, that's a perfect way to describe them. They are hidden in plain view. They've been around for 25 years or close to it. Everybody knows Semi-Charmed Life, which is an absolute classic of a song. But people maybe don't know much else other than that, or how's it going to be and stuff from the early days. They don't listen, they haven't really paid attention, but they still make great music and still kill it live. So yeah, do you want to speak to some of those earlier albums, Twan?
Yeah, so Self-Titled comes out in 97, and I don't know what time, and we could probably look it up. I'm not sure what time of year it came out. So the reason I'm trying to think is I actually got the CD in my Easter basket. And my guess is it was 98 in my 98 Easter basket. So the album came out in 97. I got it in my Easter basket. And Semi-Charmed Life was popping. How's It Gonna Be? Jumper. But those aren't even the best songs. Graduate is an all-time song. God of Wine's an all-time song. Motorcycle Drive-By is so the album ends with Motorcycle Drive-By into God of Wine. Yeah, I mean, killer closeout, and then you get into Blue, and that closes with Slow Motion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, just excellent. And Blue had the singles. It had Deep Inside of You, 10 Days Late, but it had Wounded, which was a great song.
Wounded's awesome.
And that was great. Yeah, that was on like a commercial, I remember too. But Slow Motion's classic. I will give it to you, Tone. When I was trying to compile this list, Blue gets a little sleepy. Sleepy. But it's still, is it truly great? I think it is.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. But that was the reason I went with the other run, just because there's just a couple points, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I could do it. I could absolutely make the case for it, but and you can make the case this is a 5-album run because all 5 albums are awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta give Dopamine another run, another shot, and then Screamers is the latest one, which is
Screamers
great too.
great.
I mean, it's that's the thing. Is it great? Does it meet this great criteria? I don't know. But Ursa Major, goddamn, that I know every lyric to every song on that album.
Oh yeah, that's such a sing-along album for sure.
Bonfire.
Bonfire is amazing.
Sharp Knife. 1 in 10. I mean, it's just.
Yep. What do you think, Nate? Anything that sticks out to you with those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you guys, and it's funny because I think the first 3 albums I loved, and I took a break from Third Eye Blind. I think they hadn't put out anything for a long time, and so Tone, you actually got me into Ursa Major, and it was like, oh, okay, they're back, and this album's sick, but it's that weird thing where like the 3-album run, you're into it and you think it's awesome, and you kind of like forget about it. And then if you hadn't got me into Ursa Major, I probably would have just been like, oh yeah, I checked out Third Eye Blind back in the day. I love those first 3 albums. I haven't really listened to them since. But then you got me back into them, and I'm like, yeah, they're still making amazing music. I guess it's primarily Stephen Jenkins for the most part, but yeah, I mean, he's an amazing songwriter. You know,
Yep.
He is almost classically trained. I know that he graduated like top of his class. So he's very, obviously has the creative writing down.
I remember sophomore year of high school, and I think Twan, you were in my English class. Our English teacher claimed to have dated him in 7th grade.
Yep.
Well, it's one of those things. She's like, I used to date Stephen Jenkins, and you're like, oh, thinking it's like recent, but no, it's like when they were kids.
No, we were kids. I'm like, cool. Can you get him call him and have him talk to us in English class? Like that'd be cool.
So I've seen them a bunch of times, but one of the early times was, I'd have to look it up. It was maybe 04, 05 in Boston at the Hatch Shell, which is on the Charles River
nice.
Outside.
I was at that show.
On Earth Day?
Yeah, oh my God.
And do you remember what happened during the set?
I remember his sound was, their sound was terrible for their set. Because it was like them, it was President of the United States of America. Who else played that show? It was like a 90s run, like 90s lineup.
Well, the big thing that like sticks out more than anything is, so there's the Hatch Shell, but then they had scaffolding on each side, and they had banners that covered the scaffolding, but they didn't have like slits in it for the air to get through, the wind to get through.
Well,
So they had these like vinyl banners, and the scaffolding fell into the crowd.
Oh God.
Yeah.
what?
Like I'm sure. Look it up. Looking up like 311 third Freudian slip. Maybe they have a 3-album run too. Third Eye Blind.
Actually.
Yeah. Third Eye Blind. Earth Day Boston. Like I'm sure there's an article on it. And
That's so crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone got injured, but that was like, I think it had to have been, it was definitely 04, 05. I want to say 04.
I was at that show. I don't remember that. I think I left early because I remember watching Third Eye Blind and being like, man, their sound is terrible right now, and ended up leaving the show early. But it was a stacked lineup. I remember that show in the Hatch Shell.
I think we might have just showed up for them. I don't remember openers. But yeah, Third Eye Blind, great band. I'm glad they got love from. Actually, it sounds like all three. Like Nate, they're a borderline 3-run band for you too.
Oh, totally. I'm huge into them, and it's so funny because speaking of bands you've seen the most, I would have to like count everything, but I think I've seen they're like one of those bands that I've seen a ton.
Yeah.
Like when I lived in New York City, I saw them every time they came through, and they came through a lot in Florida as well. And I would make sure to see them every time. It was just like it's always a good show. They're a great band. He's a great singer. It's great songs. It's like a pop Beatles. Like every song is a sing-along song, and it's like a very positive experience. And another band that kind of gives you a snapshot of what it's like to be in somewhere like California back in the day, or even present. Like, I don't know, something about songs that paint a picture of like a life that you kind of like want to live. You're like, oh wow, it's cool to hear it through these songs. And Third Eye Blind for sure that.
in just the lyrics. He paints a picture, like you said. But
they always tell a story, and the funny thing to me is how upbeat Semi-Charmed Life is, but it's about doing drugs. Like it's just about
Hard
being
drugs.
down and crystal meth and like just some, and I bumped up and took the hit that I was given, then I bumped again and I bumped again. Like it's not happy. It's not a happy song at all. How do I get back to that place?
Yeah. Slow Motion's a good example of that too. Slow Motion's a pretty dark song.
Yep.
I know the label wasn't too pleased about that.
Nah, screw the label.
Yeah, like Greg said, they were approved it. So.
Yep. All right, Nate, what's your last one?
Yeah, I'm anxious and curious to hear yours because you have so much you could pull from.
I mean, I have a bunch written here, and I almost like in a weird way am like kind of preserving and like going like heavy hitters and like kind of going deeper like later on.
Just pick one. You got this. I have faith because we'll do this again.
Yeah. This one's kind of a mainstream band, so a lot of people know this one. But they've been around forever, and they're really big. But the comeback for this was, I don't know what it is. Definitely for me, it's the guitarist. But when the Red Hot Chili Peppers returned in '99 with Californication, I had heard me and my brother were obsessed with Blood, Sex, Sugar Magic. And so I had a, kind of an early, luckily for my brother, like introduction to Chili Peppers, but they weren't doing shit for a long time. And they definitely weren't coming to Maine. So I was stuck on those early 90s Chili Peppers albums. And there was a dry spell, and then, they had their mishaps behind the scenes. So there was like not a whole lot of touring action, at least in the Northeast. And Californication came out, and I didn't even know like really much of the history because I was so young that all I cared about was like what sounded good, and I wasn't really geeking out on why things sounded good. And a lot of the Chili Peppers success and, stadium rockers and just status that they're at is, unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to look at it, is very much attributed to the guitarist John Frusciante, who's not even the original guitarist. So he returned for Californication, and the licks on that album, licks is slang for guitar riffs.
I think if they've made it this far, they probably
tasty licks, tasty.
So tasty, man.
I read something. I want to take credit for this, but I'm not going to. I don't want to plagiarize. I read some review on his guitar line being one that Frusciante's guitar riffs, because there's such a interesting melody that it like puts your brain into like almost like a trance. So Scar Tissue, has one of those riffs where it's like, man, it's so peaceful and clean, but kind of makes me pause for a second. So when that album came out, we were young. So we were, I guess we were in 8th grade going into high school. So it's kind of like, I'm in place again, It's working at my our family's summer camp on Sebago Lake, doing some renovation with my brother. And that single came out, and I was like, just hooked. I was like, I love the melodic soundscapes of just this riff, and I cannot wait for this album to come out. And I already love the Chili Peppers, so kind of like the Nine Inch Nails thing earlier we were alluding to, I was already stoked on the band. So this new stuff's coming out, and it's like completely different, but I was kind of a little bit more well versed on different styles of music at this point, kind of like the food thing we were talking about earlier, like different styles. And this was more of like a melodic, Anthony Kiedis is singing on this song instead of rapping and funky stuff as much, and I just loved it. So yeah, I got into this album. It dropped, and Twan, like the songs that came off this album, like obviously Scar Tissue, Californication. The singles are great, but the deep cuts on this album are obviously epic. Tone, do you have anyone on that one?
Well, I put last week, we talked about, kind of half mentioned the Chili Peppers, and I put a Chili Pepper song on the playlist that I loved as a deep cut, Parallel Universe.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
such a great flea part too. Like that bass line is just awesome. Yeah, and like he really kind of shines there on that that track. So that's one for me. Obviously, everybody knows Other Side, Californication. Those songs.
This Velvet Glove.
Yep.
This Velvet Glove. I was going to say This Velvet Glove and Road Trippin' are my favorite songs.
Road Trippin'. Yep, Road Trippin's one of my favorites.
Super deep cuts, but they're like such great songs.
This Velvet Glove. Probably the top 2 songs on that album. Top 3.
Yep, I would agree. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think we mentioned Rick Rubin earlier. This was a Rick Rubin run actually with this album and the two after. But yeah, man, I became like hooked again. It was kind of like a Third Eye Blind thing where like it was such a long break and then it came back and I was like, oh, this is awesome, and I can't wait to go, head first in this. Yeah, so that led right into By the Way, which is actually, to be completely frank, that's my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album, and actually holds a place in my favorite albums of all time, because I got in such a rhythm of just really amazing melodic sounds, and I almost want to attribute this to John Frusciante. It's just like, man, you can make such amazing sounds with a guitar, and you can do things that kind of transcend everything, and really just have you just pause. You kind of just I meditate on it. I love those riffs so much that I'm just like, man, this makes me so happy and calm and grateful for everything I have. It's like a weird like meditation thing. But By the Way, just the album's so good, and it's just the singing and the songwriting again kind of goes back to my construction projects and stuff at our family's estate, and playing these albums pretty consistently, to be completely honest. Like maybe wearing them out too much. A lot of people give the Chili Peppers shit because it's like a lot of it is the same sounds and so forth. But if you're locked into that for whatever time frame, it's because that's what tastes good at the time, and you're like, oh man, I really like this sound. I really like Frusciante. I could listen to this guy play guitar for hours because it's so blissful. So yeah, I mean, By the Way just goes down as one of my absolute favorite albums. Like everything on that Zephyr song, Can't Stop. So another weird kind of album with rhythms and so forth. But
Venice Queen. I love Venice Queen. The closing track, such a good song. Don't Forget Me is a great song too.
Yep. Venice Queen, good call. Minor Thing. I really like Minor Thing. Kind of more of an up-tempo song on the album, but I Could Die for You. Don't Forget Me actually is one of my favorites because the sequence of that song. And that, this all led into the third of this kind of on fire streak, which is Stadium Arcadium. And it was clearly just a reunion with someone that was in the band, had quit. So John was in for Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic, was really the album that like launched the Chili Peppers to superstardom. So when he quit, they kind of took I don't really know how to say this nicely. They kind of took a dip, I guess you'd say, band dynamics and everything. So when John came back, it was like a rebirth / getting the OGs back together, even though he wasn't the original guitar. So it's really ironic, but it takes trial and error to get the perfect fit. And Stadium Arcadium is just another one of those albums where it's just like, man, clearly John was just on fire in his own right, because he's just writing all this amazing music and presenting it to the band, and they can just layer on top of these amazing riffs because they're just standalone on him. I give so much credit to him because I feel like he really defines them as what they are, and without him, they just really are not the same. So yeah, songs on this one, I think everyone knows Danny California and Snow. It's kind of some singles, but again,
can I interject real quick on Danny California?
For sure, yeah.
They had to pay Tom Petty for that. You know that, right?
Yeah.
No,
it sounded like Last Dance of Mary Jane. He was like, "Hey, does this not sound just like Last Dance of Mary Jane?" I mean, just saying, guys. Not looking for money, just saying it's the same riff, and they ended up giving him royalties for it.
Wow, I'll listen to that. I didn't know about that.
Yep.
There's been a lot of Tom Petty ripoffs. Sam Smith,
Yeah, he did. Yep. Won't Back Down. Come on, dude. Sounds the same.
It probably wasn't Tom. It was probably his management that was like, "Oh, we can get this."
The story's cool. I think he was like, "I'm not looking for cash. I just want you guys to know that this was my riff first." Petty, wherever you are, man, you are the fucking badass, dude. I love Petty.
Oh, man, one of my favorites for sure. Yeah. So this third album I think I had a feeling it was gonna kind of come to a close because they were riding this wave for quite a while. And as much as I love the band, you can only do so much of something for so long in like the same kind of repetition, even though this kind of had a crescendo effect in a way, like got better and better. Although, by the way, kind of still is my favorite. But yeah, songs on here like Slow Cheetah, Wet Sand is, man, I love that fucking song.
Was that a double album?
Yep,
It
is
was,
double.
and it
Okay.
actually worked for a double album. Usually it's
Yeah.
too many songs, but I feel like this one's got its moments.
It's hard to pull off for sure. Hard to concentrate. It's one of my
Outside of
favorites.
the singles, I never heard this album.
Go check out Storm in a Teacup. That song is awesome.
Oh yeah. Actually, you know what? That's a good point. That this album, the singles, and it's not their fault, but the singles got way overplayed, and might have turned people away from this album. It's actually a really solid piece of work, but I think the radio industry, terrestrial radio at the time was, yeah, they would just kill things to death with singles. So it really kind of almost tarnished this album because it's a really solid front to back album. I actually skip through the singles a lot of the times because it's like so like, okay, I remember this almost too much. Yeah. But yeah, it was a sweet spot for the band. I think they were in a good time frame collectively, creativity wise, and they were just killing it. But
Warlock's another cool non-single track.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of funky. Those are two kind of funky Flea songs too, which kind of helps.
Yeah. I think, and to close this, I think the reason I really liked this kind of 3-album run is obviously the songs are really solid, and they've made some good stuff before and after it. But it was because I've always liked the slower songs. So when like we were talking about Soul to Squeeze on another episode, like that's like a slow jam, and I'm like, oh, this is like my favorite Chili Peppers song, or it was at the time. So when they made these 3 albums that kind of had a lot of those elements. Pretty heavy on those 3. I was like, oh, nice. This is what I really like about this band. I actually prefer that stuff than the crazy, funky, hybrid songs that they have. You know, I really like the melodic, slow stuff. So yeah, had to throw that in there and it actually goes with the Queens of the Stone Age thing because they toured together and have a lot of similarities with Southern California thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chili Peppers.
Yeah, that's a good 3-album run. I actually, in doing this, they were on my list, but I have another list going that I'll bring up at another time for you guys. I think it'd be a good thing to tease bands that didn't quite make it, and I actually thought that they didn't quite make it. But that's maybe because it's the double album. I feel like if they strip that down to one album, they absolutely make it for me. But it is a really good. I mean, for a double album, it's damn good. It's way better than it should be for 28 songs. So I would agree. That's a pretty good pickup there, Nate.
So you would have pegged them at a He's Heating Up 2 in a row?
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, you can't touch Californication, and by the way, those are
I'm with you.
Oh, those are masterpieces. And I mean,
One Hot Minute.
One Hot Minute's got some moments, but it's not as good. That's Dave Navarro. Yeah. One Big Bomb is a cool song though. Check that one out. But yeah, it's not the same. And Frusciante's now back. They kind of gave Josh the boot and brought John back, and I'm excited for that just because not that I didn't like the last 2 albums, but they're not as good. And you're right. I think a lot of what works for them is John, is Frusciante's guitar playing and the way that he melds things together with Flea and the way that it all sounds with Anthony over the top of it. Like it's, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, he's very much although not original, he made that band go from, some kind of funky project to like, no, we're going to be like a Led Zeppelin status band, which is really cool. And yeah, I could literally just listen to everything on silent and just hear John's guitar work and be happy. And I think that's why I throw Stadium as like that 3 on Fire, because I just want to listen to as much stuff that he writes as possible, And it takes the band because his solo stuff's okay, but he really needs to be. He's a band. He should always know that he's better with a band. He can't do it all. So yeah,
that was a good poll. That was a great poll.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
I think that wraps us up for tonight. We have plenty more, and we'll do this segment again for sure. But I think that's a good spot to stop. We each had two good ones, 2 big ones for the 3 of us, and they'll be fun making the playlist this week for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll. I got plenty on deck. I got it, but I'm not kidding, Tone. The Third Eye Blind was the second one I was gonna do tonight.
Well, the other one I was gonna do, I feel like the third album is just not quite there, so I jumped to Third Eye Blind, and I had kind of teased it at your sister. I was like, no, I have thoughts on this, but I have different thoughts than you do. No, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps us for this week. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, we really appreciate you. If you want to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram, we're at Podioslave, and our Gmail is podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. Like Nate said, we've got some stuff in the works. Hopefully, in the near future, we'll have a few more guests on. We've been having a fun time trying to track down some cool guests that we think you guys might like to hear and people that we want to talk to. So that's coming up in the near future. That's all I got tonight, guys. How about you?
That's it. That's all I got.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome hanging. Thanks everyone for listening. We will be back next week. Can't wait.
Peace out, podheads.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
See ya.